Right now, the US dollar is involved in 88% of all global foreign exchange transactions. Yet fewer than 12% of the world's population lives in the United States. That gap between the reach of a single currency and the people who actually use it is the most underappreciated power imbalance in the modern world, and it is starting to crack. Every time you fill up your car, buy imported electronics, or pay rent, the dollar's dominance is quietly shaping your cost of living. When the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, emerging market currencies collapse overnight. In 2022 alone, the Sri Lankan rupee lost 80% of its value against the dollar, pushing an entire nation into sovereign default. Nigeria's naira fell so sharply that food inflation hit 30%, meaning millions of families suddenly couldn't afford basic staples. Argentina, Turkey, Egypt, the pattern repeats. The dollar doesn't just dominate trade, it dictates survival for economies that never asked for that arrangement. So how did one nation's currency become the backbone of the entire global financial system, and what could actually bring it down? The story begins in 1944, in a small New Hampshire hotel called Bretton Woods. World War II was ending, and the Allied powers needed to rebuild the global economy. The US held roughly two-thirds of the world's gold reserves, and its industrial base was untouched by bombing. So the deal was simple. Every major currency would be pegged to the US dollar, and the dollar itself would be convertible to gold at $35 an ounce. It was elegant, and it gave America something no other country had ever possessed: the ability to print the world's money. For 2 decades, this system worked. Europe and Japan rebuilt using dollar-denominated trade. But by the late 1960s, the math broke. The US was spending heavily on the Vietnam War and domestic programs, printing more dollars than its gold reserves could back. In 1971, President Nixon made the most consequential economic decision of the 20th century. He severed the dollar's link to gold. The Bretton Woods system collapsed. The dollar was now backed by nothing but trust. But here's what most people miss: the dollar didn't weaken. It got stronger. Because in 1974, the US struck a deal with Saudi Arabia. Oil would be priced exclusively in dollars. Every country on Earth needed oil. That meant every country needed dollars. The petrodollar system was born, and it replaced gold as the real anchor of dollar demand. Nations had to hold massive dollar reserves just to keep their economies running. The US could now run enormous trade deficits, print trillions in treasury bonds, and the world would buy them because they had no choice. This is what economists call exorbitant privilege. The US borrows in its own currency at low rates, while the rest of the world borrows in dollars at punishing rates. When the Fed tightens policy, capital floods out of developing nations and back into US assets. It's a cycle that has repeated in 1982, 1997, 2008, and 2022. Each time, American investors profit while emerging markets bleed. But the cracks are widening faster than ever. In 2022, the US froze roughly $300 billion in Russian central bank reserves after the invasion of Ukraine. That single act sent a shockwave through every finance ministry on the planet. If the US can weaponize the dollar system against the world's 11th largest economy, what stops it from doing the same to anyone? The answer for many nations is to find alternatives. China has been quietly building one. The yuan now accounts for about 3.5% of global reserves, still small, but growing. Beijing has signed currency swap agreements with over 40 countries, and its cross-border interbank payment system, known as CIPS, processed over $14 trillion in transactions in 2023. More importantly, China is the largest trading partner for over 120 nations. When Saudi Arabia agreed in 2023 to accept yuan for some oil sales, it was a signal that even the petrodollar's foundation is no longer sacred. Then there's the BRICS bloc: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and now expanded to include Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. Together, they represent over 40% of the world's population and roughly 30% of global GDP. They are actively exploring a shared settlement mechanism that could bypass the dollar entirely. It's not a new currency yet, but the infrastructure is being built. Central bank digital currencies add another layer. Over 130 countries, representing 98% of global GDP, are exploring or piloting CBDCs. These digital currencies could allow nations to settle trade directly with each other without ever touching the dollar or the SWIFT messaging system. China's digital yuan is already in circulation across major cities. None of this means the dollar collapses tomorrow. It still dominates 58% of global reserves, and there is no single alternative with the depth, liquidity, and institutional trust to replace it. But dominance isn't binary. It's a spectrum, and the US is slowly sliding down it. The real risk isn't a rival currency. It's a world where the dollar goes from being the only option to being just one option among several. And when that happens, the exorbitant privilege that has defined American economic power for 80 years quietly evaporates. The dollar didn't conquer the world through military force. It conquered through convenience, trust, and a web of systems that made it indispensable. But indispensability is not the same as permanence. The nations that once had no choice are now building their own doors. And once those doors open, the world doesn't go back.